Welcome to the podcast. Today, my guest is Jeff Wright.
How do you do?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Noisy.
Ding.
I'm
Ring the bell. Time to start. Round one.
Dinner's ready. Yeah. I'm well, Scott. Thanks for having me, and thank you for doing these. And thank you for doing these podcasts. I think it pays homage to some guys that I hold in great esteem that not many people know about. So good on you, man.
Yeah,
Well
I
done.
think one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, just one of the reasons, there's many, but one of the reasons is I think the general public don't really understand what it's like to be a full-time muser. And I think there's a lot of great musicians who walk amongst the public, and the public has no idea of what they are. I mean, it's even one of those things where if you have to fill out a form for a bank loan or anything, where they say, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" "Well, I'm a musician," and it's like, yeah, but what do you do for a real job?
Yeah. You're back there with, lion tamers, musicians to the back of the... Yeah.
It's like it's either a hobby or you're a superstar, and there's a lot of levels in between that.
Yeah. Well, I've spent my entire life as a session man, a journeyman musician, playing for people.
Sideman.
Yeah, doing
All that sort of stuff.
Whatever I got to do. Yeah.
What was the first time you can ever remember getting into a musical instrument or being into music? What's your first memories of that?
Oh, well, that's easy. Okay. Mum and Dad's anniversary when I was 3 years old. Dad bought Mum a record player.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so from that moment, the record player was the centre of our home. This is late 50s. It would have been 57, 58. And I have a much older brother, 8 years older than me. And so he was right at the start of the beginning of rock and roll. So he was buying Elvis records and he was buying all kinds of records. And I just couldn't get away from it. I just loved it. Fascinated. And the music of that era was there was some hot records when you listen to the tracks. And my folks really liked some of the New Orleans rock and roll, Fats Domino.
Yeah. I think my dad was into Fats Domino, although I never heard him ever play a record or he never talked about. But my mum used to say that your dad really liked Fats Domino.
Mm-hmm. And Lloyd Price, Little Richard. See, those guys all used the New Orleans, we didn't know. We just thought these records sounded great and you wanted to dance to them. But they were using the Dave Bartholomew Band and Alan Toussaint Band and Dr. John. They were the backing artists. Yeah. So that infectious.
Just a short interruption to say thank you for watching the podcast.
And then my brother progressed
Please
through
subscribe,
surf music and then
make a
of course,
comment,
the Beatles.
Like, share.
And he took me to see the Beatles.
It all
when
helps
I was 9.
in spreading
6 months
the
after I got my
podcast
first
far and
guitar.
wide, and it's
I saw
much
the
appreciated.
Beatles, and
Thank you very much.
As we say now, I could have either been a musician or an oncologist after that. Or a urologist, I should say, after that, because that was insane. That was just an unleash of energy. And to see them, I mean, they were like huge. They were like Easter Island statues up there, in the suits, Paul with that Hofner bass.
Where did you see them at?
Festival Hall in Melbourne.
Could you actually hear them?
I kind of picked up a bit of, they're doing I Can't Do That.
Oh, okay.
Or they're doing that.
Was that because of the crowd noise being so loud?
Both. It was...
PA not being loud enough?
Well, they were using the boxing announcement PA, and in the red corner, that was the PA system, which would have been 60 watts and probably 4 little 8-inch speakers.
No wonder they gave up touring and playing live. Just a short interruption to say thank you for watching the podcast. Please subscribe, make a comment, like, share. It all helps in spreading the podcast far and wide, and it's much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, but the beautiful thing is you hear that playback of that Melbourne concert. They use it a lot in docos because Channel 7, I think, recorded it very well. The tempos are bang on.
Yeah.
And, you know, Ringo, he's standing up to hit the drums to try and hear himself and to be heard. But the tempos are exactly the same as the record. And the harmonies are intact.
Yeah.
The harmonies are great. The playing's tight. And they couldn't hear
themselves.
No idea. As Ringo used to watch Paul's foot to see where he was at.
Wow.
And that's how they stayed in. So, yeah, that was a big one. That was when...
So who was your favourite Beatle?
Early on, John.
Okay, John Lennon, yeah.
I thought he was cool.
Yeah.
And funny.
Yeah.
You know. And then as I progressed as a musician, George.
Yeah.
And always George.
Well, he didn't come to the fore till later on down the track with them anyway. Like his songwriting in the early days was, I guess whether he didn't have the confidence or whatever it was, but later on down the track, his songs became more prominent in their catalogues.
Yeah, for sure there was that. He was a great writer. And you know, it's well documented that he was pushed to the side because there was
what a band to be in.
What a band to be in.
What a band to be in. If you've got McCartney and Lennon writing stuff, it's like you're going to have to come up with some good stuff.
But you think about it, and I think Paul alludes to this in a doco that I saw, that George and Ringo were the ultimate session musicians.
Yeah.
Because John and Paul would walk in with a song they'd written the night before. Okay, guys, here's the chords. And it would be George, even as a very young guy.
Because he was younger than the rest of them too.
Way younger, yeah. It was him that came up with, you know, boom, 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 in, what's the song? And I Love Her.
Yeah.
You know, that signature guitar line. You know, no one told him to play that. And the solo.
Yeah.
And he had the balls to do it on nylon string.
Yeah,
and the solo's beautiful. I mean, you go back over all of those. I had to learn it for a show once. Mm-hmm. I had to really nail George's playing for a show. To go back over those early records even, where he was, you know, not what you would call a developed musician. Man, he had some great things. The solo, and I Saw Her Standing There.
Yeah.
Try and learn that one day. It's nuts. You can't do it. And of course, later as he progressed, I mean, he's playing the solo on Something. That's
a beautiful song.
Beautiful solo and a fantastic song.
Great chord.
But that solo is perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. And really hard to execute well. You know, he just does that. And then, of course, he's slide playing. I'm very influenced by his slide playing.
Yeah.
Unique slide player.
So you've seen the Beatles and you're a young fella.
Yeah.
When did you first start playing an instrument yourself?
When I was 8. So just before the Beatles toured.
Okay.
I pestered and got a guitar because, as I said, my brother was playing a lot of guitar-orientated music, Chuck Berry and the Safaris and, you know, Wipeout and all that stuff, and the Shadows. So my mum and dad bought me a guitar for my 8th birthday, and then, of course, there were no guitar teachers. This is 1962, 1963.
Wow.
No guitar teachers. You had to go into the city. And I lived a long way out of Melbourne. I grew up, you know, a southern Bayside suburb down near the Mornington Peninsula.
Okay.
Right. So going to the city was a big deal. You know, it was a day trip, man. You know.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, even, I suppose, especially now, it's probably an hour and a half drive.
Yeah. With the freeways in bits in it, but yeah. Back in the day, an hour and a half, you know, to get into town. A bit longer on the train sometimes, you know. And so you had to go in. There was only one place where you could get lessons at that time, and it was called the Victoria Banjo Club. Wow. So I rocked up with my guitar, had no idea how to tune it. I know nothing. And there's, we walk in and there's like 10 church pews, right, and a guy at the front. And in those church pews, there's guys with banjos, guys with mandolins, guys with guitars, guys with electric guitars, and I don't know what's going on, right? So I walk in and I'm left-handed.
Oh.
Right? And so I've walked in and I've got my guitar out of the box and gone bang straight into the guy next to me. And the teachers come down and he said, no. Hold it round that way. And I went, but I'm left-handed. He said, so what? There's no left-handed pianos. This is how you play guitar.
It's a strange thing. I've worked with so many different people, some people who play left-handed, some people who play a right-handed strung guitar left-handed.
Bo Jenkins.
And it's an amazing thing to see, and it really does work.
Yeah.
And it works. It's like if you learn to play that way, it
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And I think, as a lefty, I'm totally left-handed in everything.
In some ways, that could be an advantage.
I
would imagine so, because your left hand would probably be quite strong, so your ability to make chord shapes and...
Particularly as a little kid,
Yeah.
I had more dexterity and strength in my left hand.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the guitars you bought weren't like the student models you buy now, which are
Yeah.
quite playable. I mean, these things were appalling. You could fire arrows off the action, like so. And terrible.
With heavy strings as well?
Oh, absolutely,
man.
fencing wire.
It's like, yeah.
So,
learn on the hardest possible guitar to play.
Absolutely. So that was the start, and I struggled along with that, and because it was so hard to get into the city for lessons, and really it was really not much, there was no personal tuition. You had a
Okay.
blackboard up the front, and here's the chord shapes. We're going to do Springtime in the Rockies, and there'd be this cacophony. Right,
wow.
There'd be out-of-tune banjos, out-of-tune mandolins, horribly out-of-tune guitars, and just guys bashing away, and this poor dude out the front,
Oh, wow.
And, of course, the chord shapes were like, here's a G. And here's this, and we go to C. And it's just this racket, right? And you got no idea. So I didn't really dig what was going on, and I was really into footy, So
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
AFL.
AFL.
Because you're a Melbourne boy.
Absolutely. Always wanted to be an AFL footballer.
Okay. Were you good at sport?
I was very good at footy,
Okay.
dreadful at most other things. But I really, there was a time where I could have gone either way, music
Okay.
or football. And I love footy.
Is a height a thing in AFL? Because I know there's a lot of AFL players are quite tall.
I failed the...
Because that's what I was going to say. You're not a terribly tall guy,
I'm not a
Jeff.
very tall guy. I was what they would call a left-footed nuisance.
A left-footed nuisance.
The left-footed nuisance. I could turn around the other way to which they expected, and
This come from your left-handedness.
from the left-handedness, of course, and I learned to run away from big guys that wanted to hurt me pretty quickly. So there was that. It ended up, football's a major thing, but you can't keep your hands as a footballer.
Was there music in school?
No. You had one music class a week. The music room had a busted record player and a fucked piano. And that was it, absolutely zero.
Wow.
However, and getting back to what got me into music, we're talking this magical era of 64 onwards. The Beatles have hit, the Stones have hit.
Yeah.
I saw the Stones in 64, 65.
Wow.
Again, my big brother, good on you, Barry, thanks, mate, took me to see the original Stones with Brian Jones. Man, that was great. That was great. They rocked. You could hear them. They rocked. That era, every kid wanted to play in a band,
Yeah.
right? And consequently, the high school I went to, I was in my first band in first form, year 7. But there were guys in year 12 and year 11 who could really play.
Ah.
And they all had bands. There were probably 6 bands at the high school I went to.
Wow.
And the guys in year 11 and 12, they were in the city doing gigs, They were out doing it.
Yeah.
And, they could play, man. They were good players. Well, in my years anyway, back then. So...
Well, Melbourne's always had a good reputation for having great music scene.
it was amazing what was going on there. Amazing. You know, I started getting paid for gigs when I was 12 because you could go and do the local dance. Every suburb had a dance
in the local community hall. Yeah.
And it would start at 6 and it would go till 11. And there'd be heaps of bands on. So early on would be your local bands getting some experience, and we got a bucket each or something. You know, it was great. You know, and then later on, you know, one of the bands, the grown-up bands like that we'd see it on TV, like Doug Parkinson in Focus, or Max Merritt and the Meteors, or Chain, or Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs.
Wow.
They would be playing. So there's 5 great bands on.
Yeah.
And then a couple of the local junior bands. But at least we had a chance to get our chops.
Yeah. Not only that, you get a chance to play, but then get a chance to watch other people play as well.
Oh, now this was the thing. There was no musical education program. There was no MTV.
But you get a musical education seeing other people do it.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And I think something that really is lacking today. I mean, if you ask me who I'm most influenced by musically, guitar players, I'd tell you 3 guys from Melbourne. You know,
because you could physically sit there and
I was
watch
this
them
far away
play.
from them, man, when I was 13 years old.
And you learn a lot from that.
You know, I'd go to them, see them at local dances, or, you know, my parents were really cool. They knew this was what I wanted to do, and they would let me go into the city on my own on a Saturday night if I wasn't gigging.
Wow.
Or a Friday night or
Such
a
a
Thursday
different world,
night,
isn't it?
And just go to the clubs. Melbourne had 10 or so music clubs, no alcohol.
So it was all about the music, no alcohol.
All about the music.
Oh, man.
And they would have 5.
We don't have anything like that today.
No, nothing like it, man. And this was going on 7 nights a week, 5 bands a night for like $1, you know. And you know, the standard of players that I saw, and these guys were the product of bad geography. If they had grown up in New York, LA, we'd know all about them. You know, I had this conversation with Jim Kelly once, and he agreed that if a guy was the best player in Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide or Sydney, he could go to New York and be one of the best players in New York or LA or whatever. The difference is that in America, sheerly because of the numbers, you're going to get a Larry Carlton, you're going to get a Steve Gadd, and you're going to get a Robin Ford, you know, you're going to get a Miles Davis. And also they have the opportunity.
I guess there's a level of competitiveness, but there's also, I guess, the ability to see other players of an incredible high standard. And it's like, while we probably have players of that standard here, there's a lot more of them over there.
There is. But what I also noticed, you know, but worked in the States a couple of times, is that there's a chasm between those guys and the next level.
Oh, wow.
Do
you think that is because of the opportunity to play and perform?
Totally. This is where we were so lucky in Australia, 60s, 70s, 80s and probably early 90s. Is there was so much work.
Yeah, you could go out and play 5 nights a week.
Absolutely.
And that's what it sort of, if you're playing 5 nights a week every week, that the standard of your abilities comes up. But not only that, the quality of a band, if it's playing together that often.
Oh yeah.
It
becomes a really good team.
It does. It does because it's honed and it's rehearsed and it's well, at least you would hope it would be.
And you know, just really fortunate time, you know, to be able to, you know, be 3 feet away and watch a guy the standard of Ross Hannaford, unique guitar player. Now, when Daddy Cool went to the States, I love Ross Hannaford, man. I just love his approach. Ross hit the notes we all were looking for.
Yeah.
And he hit them every time. Beautiful. When Daddy Cool went to the States and played the Whiskey, John Mayall was there every night to watch his band, watching Ross Hannaford, man. He was that good. Another guy called Billy Green, who works under the name Will Greenstreet now. He's a sax player now.
Oh.
Billy Green was the guitar player in Doug Parkinson in Focus.
Yep.
And he was phenomenal. Not so much, I mean, he could solo like a mother, right? But what he played, the comping, that shit, intrigued me. That's what got my ear, was the way he played chords.
Yeah.
And the way the
Chord
groove,
substitution and
the
stuff
groove that he had,
yeah.
you know, in the rhythm section, and these really cool substitutions.
Mm.
And then there was the daddy of them all. There was a guy called Les Stackpool. You know, Les is still playing, Les Stackpool.
Oh, wow.
He'd be 82, 83.
Wow.
Lives in an assisted care home. Government driver comes and picks him up, takes his guitar and amp, and takes him
Wow.
to the gig in the van.
Cool.
Right? Drops him off. He's still playing.
Man, I'm hope that I can be still playing when I'm that age. I've had Louis Shelton on the podcast. He's in his 80s and he still plays great.
Yeah.
Still play.
Yeah.
It's just like I just hope that I can be anywhere, have that facility to be able to enjoy playing music still.
Louis Shelton. Wow. I was a real prog rock, hardcore fusion guy.
Yeah.
When I was about 17, you know, when I was really hitting my straps and practice, play. And I was in a band that was playing really ferocious prog rock, you know, really exploratory. We were, if it wasn't Mahavishnu or if it wasn't, you know, Miles, we don't want to know.
Wow.
You know, we were really going for it.
Yeah.
Great players. And we used to have record nights, you know, we'd go around, they had a communal house and we'd have record nights. And someone put on Seals and Crofts' Diamond Girl album.
And Louis
And
Shelton,
my world changed.
yeah, and he played guitar and produced the album.
Yeah, and Louis plays the most beautiful, perfect solo.
Yeah.
And it's 4 notes.
Yeah.
And it's just right. And I just went, okay, there's something. That's something I want to hear, you know.
Playing the right notes, but it's also the timing and phrasing and the space.
Believe
leaving
me,
space.
as you get into your old age, the space becomes very important.
But he was a young man when he was doing that stuff. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, he obviously had the forethought and the ear and the knowledge.
Something I learned from playing with Americans when I was in my 20s overseas. You know, Australian bands, because of the environment we played in, you know, we tend to be pretty aggressive. And in order to generate excitement, you're pushing tempos and you're playing with a lot of intensity. And what I learned of some guys that I work with was that Americans are masters of the slow burn. They're like a Chinese burn.
Yeah.
You know, they apply the pressure, but it never boils over and it just cooks along real good, and they hit me to that.
Yeah.
And that was a big education, particularly as a rhythm player.
Okay.
And my rhythm playing was not to, hey, the drummer's already leaning in. He's playing 16s already. Stay out of there. And it's okay, well, what am I going to do? All right, so don't push it. Let him float on the drums. That was so educational for me. It was an eye-opener. Because, you know, I come from a thing where, you know, we'd be going for it, man. We'd be on a jam and it'd be like, you know. And that'd be like for 10 minutes, right?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And you're silent like, you know. and then to work with guys that were sitting on this sort of thing. All that guitar's plugged in.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe sitting on this thing for a while. Right, and it was like a whole other world. So they were the guys that from J.J. Cale's backing band.
Ah.
I met them when I was in Europe and got to play with them, and they just taught me a whole new world about that sort of music. you
Okay.
know? Yeah, and slide and, yeah, great players, obviously.
So when you left school, what did you do with yourself?
The band that I had in year 10 and 11 in school, it was kind of, we had a little band going. It was okay. There was one guy that was real good, the keyboard player. It was great. And he had a Hammond.
Oh.
Right? His dad bought him a Hammond.
Yep.
And I went off just before I left school. I put an ad in the paper, right, in one of the local, in the city paper.
Okay.
Guitarist available, original material, no time wasters. I was 15, man, right? Like, And I get a phone call. And it's like, yeah, who are you? What do you want to do? I said, well, I write and, you know, how old are you? I said, 15. And he could hear the, He said, well, look, you might have heard of this band, and they were called Billboard. Mm-hmm. And I had heard of them. I'd seen them, and they were a great band. You know, well, man, you know, like I said, well, I'll have a shot. And the guy on the other end, luckily, had worked part-time as a school teacher. Mm-hmm. He had an empathy towards kids.
Okay.
He said, we'll give the little fucker a shot. Yeah. Right. And I got the gig.
Oh, cool.
And so I joined them.
Yep.
And then a couple of the guys, because they're much older than me, a couple of the guys left, and I brought in the keyboard player from school, Nicky. And we ended up with a tight little band, and writing our own stuff, and playing local gigs and local dances. And then we played at a local dance called Shindig on the beach in Melbourne, institution. It went for like 25 years, right? And the guy in the house band, a great singer called Paul Meany, and he loved the band, and he managed us, got us our record deal. Hey, next thing we know, we're away. So I left school, you know. I left school just shy of my 16th birthday.
Okay.
Much to my parents' horror.
And so where was this band based in Melbourne? So were you travelling?
We were, you know, these guys were from the grown-up side of town, right? But they had cars. So, and my mum and dad would put them up, you know.
Oh, okay.
Because I lived quite a way, and so did the keyboard player. We lived a long way out of town.
And they would come to you?
They'd come and pick us up, take us to gigs.
Okay.
Sometimes I'd stay over at their place, you know, in the seedy part of town. And or other times they'd stay with us. It just depended where we were working. And we worked a lot, you know. Mm-hmm. We worked a lot. We had a successful record. We got, I think, number 5 in Melbourne.
Okay.
And we did heaps of gigs. And we had a great time. I mean, it was just the best time to be doing that, you know. We probably worked 11, 12 gigs a week, easy.
Wow.
Easy. 3 on a Saturday, 3 on a Friday.
And one of the things I noticed, I mean, I don't know about back then, but I remember spending a bit of time in the late 90s checking out the Melbourne scene. And from what I saw, there was a lot of gigs that would be like 2 hours, 3 hours at the most. Whereas up in Queensland, they're all 4 hours and sometimes longer.
Yeah.
And it was, we
used to do an hour set.
Yeah.
And you'd start on the outskirts of the suburbs just before your wheels fell off.
So a lot of the venues would have like three bands during the course of the evening.
Or 4 or 5, as I was saying, you know, those local dances.
Yeah.
They go, you know.
So you do a 1 hour set there and then move on to a 1 hour set
then
somewhere else.
A little bit closer into town, and then you do the city circle.
Yeah.
And you might do 2 clubs in the city.
Yeah.
And finish at 4 a.m, you know.
Yeah.
Heaven.
Yeah.
What a world for a 15-year-old, man.
Yeah.
It's great fun. So eventually the band broke up, but some funny shit went down. I got a little bit of money because I wrote, and you know, Dad was worried about what was going to become of me, you know. And this check arrived from Festival Records, and it was a lot of money, a lot of money.
Is that because of songwriting credits?
Yeah, it's songwriting royalty. The single also ended up on the back of one of these 20 greatest hits records.
Oh, yep.
And you know, and
like back in the day, was it Ripper?
Ripper, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The great, yeah.
Those things, you know, surf hits. Yeah. I don't know. I think we were under, you know, heavy metal, whatever, you know.
Oh wow.
So it was enough for me to, you know, get established out of home.
Yeah.
And so, what could possibly go wrong? I set up a commune on a farm right out in the northeast of Melbourne, and that's when some interesting shit went down. But great place to rehearse, great place to invite other musicians. Mm-hmm. It was a real cool scene. So I ended up after school. You know, the band had broken up, and I was, you know, didn't really know what to do. I was hanging with these guys who used to come out the farm. One of them had a music shop. He said, "Oh, you can come and teach." And so I didn't have a license. He said, "You can, you stay upstairs," and it was near the city. And he had a partner in the shop who was this Armenian biker, but a cool guy and a drummer, but a hustler. Right? So my next job after I left the band after school, the Armenian guy, Jono, comes in. Says, "Guys, I got a gig. I got a gig for us," because the owner of the shop played bass. He said, "We can do it 3-piece. All we have to do is jam all night, and it's $300 a week." What? $300 a week in 1971?
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
A real lot of money.
It's a real lot of money back
real
then.
lot of bread.
It's sort of weird when you think about it in today's terms, but back
Yeah.
then, what would be the equivalent of probably $3,000?
$3,500 a week.
Yeah.
And okay, it's like 5 nights a week, 8 till 3. Whoa, okay. What are we going to play? He said, "Just jam. We're just going to jam." Sounds interesting. Where is it? Pinky's nightclub in Fitzroy Street, St Kilda, which is the Cross of Melbourne, right?
Yeah.
So 16 years old, in the equivalent of the Cross, Pinky's night spot turns out being this really ultra seedy club because back then it was illegal to be gay.
Oh.
So it's a gay men's club in the seediest part of St Kilda.
Wow.
And our gig, which of course the drummer hasn't told us, is that from 8 till 3, we're backing transvestite strippers. And that was the gig.
From 8 till 3?
8 till 3, man.
That's
it was brutal.
Yes.
But talk about getting your chops up.
Yeah.
And a really weird scene happened because we started to expand the band a little bit. And we just played the craziest shit you've ever heard. We just jammed. I mean, we really just went nuts. And we ended up with horn players and keyboard players and percussionists playing this really far out stuff. Well, all the local hippies got onto it. So during the course of the evening, there would be the complete cross-section of the underground world of Melbourne.
Wow.
In this joint while we were playing. Really wild time.
Yeah.
Wild time.
So how long did that go on for?
Oh, it felt like about 10 years, man, but I think it was probably, I think we lasted 6 months.
Oh, wow.
But quite a
Because I mean, while it would be great to be playing that much, it would take its toll.
I had to move back home.
As guys said, how was your health?
It was, it was shot to bits.
Yeah.
I was 16 and I looked about 120. I think I was down to in kilograms, I was probably 50 kilograms tops, and not well.
Yeah.
Not well. A lot of other substances had been discovered, let's say.
Yeah.
And it was definitely time to move back home.
Yeah.
So from there, I met up with a band that had come from Brisbane. I still don't understand why they asked me to join, but they did.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful because these guys were the best players that I'd played with by a mile up to then. Mm-hmm. And their singer ended up being Doug Parkinson.
Oh, wow.
And it was only like 2 years before I'm watching Doug Parkinson, and I'm just in awe of the guy. Mm-hmm. Next thing I know, I'm playing with him.
Yeah.
All right. So that was great. I mean, that was just great. And there's nothing better than that. I've been so lucky a few times to end up looking across at the guy I'm playing with and go,
yeah.
With Max Merritt. And, it was never in my wildest dreams. So I think I'd play in Max Merritt and the Meteors.
Wow.
Wow,
So what era was it when you were playing with him?
I joined Max in 2000.
Okay.
2000 till 2008. And when unfortunately became too ill to work anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was on a tour that we did, and he got really sick, man. Really sick. He barely made it off the plane.
Wow.
When they hit LA, and it was renal failure, so he was very ill. Mm. Does Max put it out, man? Wow. Those guys just elevate the energy that you play at.
Yeah.
And the acuity that you play at. You know, he and Doug and, you know, people, players of that ilk.
I was going to say, you spent a certain amount of time, I don't know how much time, but playing with a band called Captain Spaulding.
Yes, I did.
Which was a very famous Melbourne cover band.
That was the first real cover band I played in, yeah.
What brought that about?
Okay. I know. I remember how it happened. I did put together a band with an American drummer that had moved out by the name of Fallon Williams, and Fallon had just left Humble Pie.
Wow.
And he was actually, I think, in exile in Australia.
Oh.
Right. And so I met up with Fallon and Wayne Jones, the great bass player Wayne Jones, made a huge reputation for himself. We thought, well, at that time in Melbourne there was a club called the Grain Store, and they had 3 levels, and you played either original music on the lower level, you know, uptown sort of funky stuff in the middle, and upstairs was the house band who basically played covers, but played covers like
really well,
you know, and cool stuff, you know, as well. They put their own stamp on it. And we thought, well, this is the market we want to get into. So we had a great singer. We had John Grant on keyboards, who's a beautiful keyboard player. And, you know, it was a cool band.
Yep.
Somewhere in there, the guys from Captain Spaulding used to come and watch us play. And a friend of mine played guitar in the band, and it was the gig in Melbourne if you were a player that wanted to make a good living and not have to tour. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get into a cover band that was, you know, respectable.
Yep.
And played well, played with integrity.
So you could make a good living, but not have to go out on the road and tour.
I had a young family. You know, my boys were growing up. I needed to be home. I needed to be around.
So you wanted something stable and...
Yeah. And, you know, I'd been backwards and forwards, you know. The bands that never made it.
Yeah.
Touring all over Australia, promoting an album that got put on the shelf at a certain record company, never to surface. That shit. I'd had enough. I really had enough. And there's a couple of occasions in my life where I've gone, no, that's enough. And luckily one of them got me overseas, but that's another story. I got a phone call one day. I was actually not travelling all that well financially. There's been a while between gigs. And it was taking a while to get a thing off the ground. And I got a phone call from a guy that used to do front of house for that band, who was now doing Captain Spaulding. And he said, "Are you working?" And I said, "Not much." He said, "Well, there's a Captain Spaulding are looking for a guitar player as of tonight." Apparently there'd been
someone had a falling out?
Oh, yeah, if you could call it that, yes. Yeah, you know, there were eyes, teeth, noses.
Oh, no.
There'd been... No. Things had, there'd been tears before bedtime in the band camp.
Wow.
So, next thing I know, I got a call and I'm in Captain Spaulding band. I did a week's trial and it went good and ended up in the band, I think, 8 years.
Wow.
And it was great. I mean, wow, because we got to work, because there was a good budget. We had the best PA, the best lights, the best road crew.
And he was a great frontman.
Oh, brilliant frontman.
Yeah.
Brilliant frontman. And, really funny. The band was really well rehearsed. It had to be, particularly when we started using horn section sequences and stuff. And, the production got bigger and bigger. This was before...
And I imagine the band had quite a big repertoire too.
Oh, huge.
You're doing like basically top 40, but classic stuff as well.
240 songs I had to learn. and because I'd been the jazz and fusion snob.
Oh, you hadn't been in touch with
I'd missed that whole era of pop music.
Okay.
Clash and that era. I'd never heard of them. Who?
Obviously, if you're familiar with the material, it makes it easier at least to learn it.
Luckily, Pete Dacey, the other guitar player, was very kind and spent a lot of time with me.
He played with them for a long time. I think he was still... Was he playing with them still?
Oh, yeah.
Well into the...
Pete was in the band 20-odd years.
Yeah, because did he ended up having anything to do with Taxi Ride?
Yes.
He managed...
Taxi Ride was Pete's... Pete was the producer.
Okay.
Pete had a great studio at the back of the house, which we all ended up living in because the workload on Captain Spaulding Band saw us all in great matrimonial grief at some point or another.
Yeah.
But we had access to Pete's studio. Pete was a brilliant guy and really knew how to make records. Mm-hmm. And he really had a good business acumen as well. Taxi Ride was his brainchild. You know, he handpicked the guys, put them together, put in hours and hours and hours and hours of rehearsals and demos and mentored. And the fruition was that was a very successful project.
Yeah.
Very successful.
Nice bunch of guys too. Nice,
beautiful guys.
Yeah. I mean,
I
know Tim Wilde.
Yeah.
Not well, but I was good mates with a guy that used to live with Tim.
Tim replaced me in Spaulding.
Yeah. Well, there was at some point an opportunity where I could have auditioned for the part, but never did.
You were saved. You were being looked after. Believe me.
Well, I just remember it was one of those things. There was a point of like, oh, Scotty, Tim's leaving to go off and do Taxi Ride, and there's becoming a position available if you want to try out for it.
Right.
And I was like, oh, and I went and had a good look at the situation. Was like, and it was a great offer.
And this
I was doing financially much better things up here at the time.
Yes. I know a lot of guys that moved up here. This was when it started to decline in Melbourne.
Yeah.
There was a change of government and a couple of things were brought in, roadside breath testing, and also pokies were introduced. And they slipped it in under the thing of, oh, now the clubs will have more money to pay for entertainment. Bullshit. It decimated Melbourne's music scene.
Yeah.
You know, with Spaulding Band, the reason we were able to do well is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, twice on Saturday, twice on Sunday, 2 doubles, right? We would be working beer barns.
Yeah.
You know, 3,000 kids.
Yeah.
Where did they go when all this stopped?
Yeah.
But they just disappeared.
They divided the rooms up and made the rooms smaller and then put poker machines in certain areas of the rooms.
Well, one poker machine was 200, every one of those was 200 grand profit a year.
It's not only that,
Insane.
there was also, I don't know whether it was the same thing in Melbourne, but part of the problem with poker machines up here, whether it's saying it's a problem, with the way the licensing laws worked, if you were going to have a room with 1,000 kids in it, you had to have 10 security guards. If you had a room with 1,000 poker machines in it, you just have one. So there's the overheads and the amount of money you could make out of.
And noise problems I mean,
there's
you've got denser housing, and that's another thing that killed Melbourne.
I guess back in that time too, earlier on, there was people were smoking cigarettes inside venues, and that stopped, and then the drink driving laws came in, and that had there's been a lot of things that have had a major effect on the amount of people that go out to see live music.
Oh, for sure. And I know in Melbourne, particularly, probably in Sydney too, a lot of the successful music clubs were in areas where there was warehouses.
Yeah.
And suddenly those warehouses get developed into, luxury apartments.
Yeah.
And
the people move in and go, oh, what's that horrible noise coming down the road?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, I can hear a bass drum.
Yeah.
And that's a sad thing to say. I try not to entertain that because now I think there's other sides of the coin that are perhaps, you can let it play to your advantage. But, and you can't walk around defeated. And the good old days.
There's only one thing that's really guaranteed in life, and that's that things will change. And that's the thing, I guess, it's that your ability to roll with the changes is going to define how successful you are in life, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And as you get older, it's harder to change.
Oh, it's really hard to change. It's really hard. I mean, I'm still recording on the same stuff I used in 1972.
Let's talk about that. You've got a studio down in Byron area.
Yeah.
And it's fully analogue.
Fully analogue.
Not a piece of digital gear in sight.
Well.
But it's all on, it's analogue console onto a tape machine.
Correct.
Mastering to a tape machine.
Yep. Eventually, you've got to go to digital domain.
Yeah.
For sure. You have to. And I have a couple of ways I do that. But I've always preferred the sound of tape. I think,
Yeah, there's a certain tape compression that you get,
mellifluous
particularly
sound.
when you're recording drums.
Yeah.
And so, and certain guitar sounds and
Yeah. I think there's a curious thing is that analog or tape recording has almost been thrown in the gimmick basket. There's plugins for it if you want that analog vibe.
Yeah.
And I think that tends to make people think, oh, it's going to get all gooey and funky and distorted and rough like an old LP record. And it's actually the reverse. You familiar with Stav?
Yes.
Yes.
I've got his
Mixing
book.
with the Mind.
Yeah, I've got his book.
He did a beautiful exercise where he got a shotgun mic,
Yep.
attached it to a digital recorder and an analog recorder, and then rubbed his fingers away from the microphone. Now, that's a very complex set of frequencies.
Yep.
There's extreme lows and extreme highs in that. And just moved it closer and closer to the microphone, and then away, and then played back the result. And what happened in the analog one was that silence, and then it got louder. The closer he got, and louder, 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 louder. It's quieter, 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 and finally disappeared,
Yep.
as you would expect. And in digital, nothing, 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 bang. Louder, 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 quieter, 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 and then digital chatter. Trying to crunch the frequencies and the algorithms freak it out. And so there's a certain thing you're listening for.
Yep.
When I started doing sessions in digital studios, not as an engineer but as a player, I go and listen to the playback and it sounded, wow, it just doesn't sound complete.
The great thing is digital recording has come a long way. The quality of converters is much, much better now.
Yeah.
And you can get access to relative like high quality converters at not a ridiculous price. I remember there was a point in time when just to buy a 16-bit Sony machine would cost you like $500,000.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I remember.
And now you can buy converters that are possibly better than that for like $500. It's like it's a strange.
Oh, Prism converters when they came out was so expensive.
Yeah.
And I remember when Pete Dacey set up Pro Tools at Secret Sound, his studio, how much that cost. It was an enormous amount of money.
Oh yeah.
And the amount of drive required to run it back then. I don't know, man. I just like. There's a couple of things that and I'll wave my little analog flag here.
Yeah.
I really like the sound of it
Yep.
for a start, and it translates beautifully back to digital domain.
Yep.
I dig that. But it's more for me about the process and about the goal of progression as a musician and an artist. And I think it's reflected in the fact that there hasn't been an acceleration of greatness in artistry as the technology got better.
No, there's become a reliance on the technology and not a reliance on your performing ability.
There used to be like a rite of passage. You'd start out as a musician, garage band,
Yep.
local gig, blah, blah, blah. You'd learn, you get better at your craft, you'd practice, you'd play, you'd practice, right? And you might go in and cut a record because you wanted to hear what it sounded like. Because you couldn't really, up until late 90s, if you wanted to hear what you sounded like properly.
Well, I mean,
you had Porter Studios.
Porter Studios came in. That was
pretty
quite a good way of doing demos and recording yourself.
Yeah.
When they first came in.
If you really wanted to get the goo,
yeah,
if you really wanted to get it, they were great. I had a Porter Studio, best thing in the world.
Oh yeah, great thing, great learning tool.
Oh yeah, totally, great learning tool, great sketchpad.
Yes,
great sketchpad. But anyway, to get back to that, you got better. You go into a studio for the first time and you'd record. And you could critically, for the first time, work out where you were at.
Yes, that's true.
As a singer, as a drummer, as a bass player, as a guitar player, as a writer, as an arranger. Why doesn't this sound like that record that I really like? Geez, we missed the mark. So you work harder and you'd do more gigs and you'd practice more and you'd write more and blah, 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 blah. And then you go in the studio the next time, you'd be better. And I try to set that goal for myself even now. And I've done thousands of sessions. Big deal. But yeah, I want to come out a better player every time. I want to learn something new every time and refine the art a little bit rather than have technology do it for me.
But I also think too, one of the great things about tape is it's that one chance to nail the performance. You know, there's not, it'll be okay, we can fix it in the edit. Oh, can you auto-tune that? Oh, can you, the drum's a bit out of time, it's okay, we can tweak that.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
whereas one of the great things about tape is it's like you go in and you play, and what you've played is been recorded on that tape, and it's like that's the way it's going to stay, so you better get it right. So there's a more emphasis on getting the performance right than there is these days.
It's a different mindset, for sure. I mean, absolutely. When I produce records and when I'm recording, you know, I try to get everyone to play at once.
Yes.
As much as possible, and with an emphasis on keeping a great drum and bass track. You know, it doesn't matter so much if someone fucks up and the tape's going, it's a good take.
Yeah.
We can punch in.
Yeah.
You can punch in real fast in analog, 64th note, and boom, it's in, it's out. You know, that's not an issue. You can always fix a bum note. What you can't fix is someone who can't sing or flattens or sharpens. You can't fix that. You can't fix a drummer whose timing's iffy.
Yeah.
You can't fix a bass player who hasn't learned the proper attack, and a guitar player that bends notes out of tune or plays chords out of tune, and you know that one. You know, some guys have got out of tune
It's
fingers.
like your guitar's in tune, but the pressure on
the
pressure on certain notes is greater than other notes, and therefore,
But hey, that's all about progression as a musician.
Yes.
And what other feedback have you got? An artist, a visual artist, knows he sucks straight up. Straight away.
Yeah, because there's immediate feedback.
And he can go and refer back to that piece all the time and go, I didn't, that brush stroke's real bad. I can refine my technique. He's got a point of reference.
Yeah.
The only point, our best playing, I'm sure, same for you, the best things I've ever played in my life are out there spinning around in the ether, because that happened at 11:30, the last set of the night in 1974.
Yeah.
You know, only there was that point of reference.
Yeah. In this day and age, it's not that difficult to record gigs.
No.
Which is a great thing to do, just from the point of view of learning if the band's actually...
You don't have to bring a truck.
No, because that was a big thing back in the days, the big studio in a truck.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's go backwards a little bit.
Please.
What happened that you left Captain Spaulding? Obviously, so Tim Wilde's come in and he's replaced you.
Do you want the adult? No, no. Okay. I was really burned out on it.
Yeah.
Very burned out. And that band had a high attrition rate.
Ah.
Okay. It was hard work, man. We worked a lot, 7 gigs a week, 8 sometimes.
Yeah.
And on our only day off, we'd rehearse.
Wow.
And it was a punishing lifestyle, and it had to spark every night.
Yeah.
And Tommy was big on that. He said, the audience don't care if you've had a fight with your missus. The audience don't care if you've got the flu.
Yeah.
The audience don't care if you've just broken your leg.
Yeah.
We're going to make a good show tonight. And, it was tiring. It was really tiring. And I always kept my hand in writing. And at the time, I was living at Pete Dacey's house. Mm-hmm. And I was, recording demos, and I was hanging out with my muso friends from the original music days a little bit, and getting, getting itchy. And a lot of other things, personal reasons. I wanted to work on my marriage, because that was blown to pieces, over that.
Not home very often.
I wasn't home at all. And when I wasn't in great shape.
Yeah.
It was a pretty dark era. Anyway, blah, blah. All ended well. So I had demos, and there was the Blues Appreciation Society in Melbourne put on a Blues Performer of the Year contest every year. And first prize was a trip to Memphis to play at the Blues Festival.
Wow.
And I went in it and played a couple of original blues songs, and I tied. So they couldn't afford to send us both to Memphis.
Let's flip a coin.
Who wants to go to Memphis? Who wants to have 3 days at Platinum Studios, which was the studio in Melbourne?
Oh, wow.
I went, Platinum, please. See you later, man. You go have a good time in Memphis. Right? So I was in.
Yep.
And I brought the boys in that I'd been rehearsing with.
Yep.
And we'd started to play a club towards the end of the Spalding days. There was a great residency at 1 a.m. In Little Bourke Street in Melbourne, Little Riata's, really famous jazz club upstairs. And over a 12-month period, we built this thing up. And it was just great, man. It was like, you walk in, by the time I'd finished the Spalding gig, it'd be 12:30. I'd get into the city, 1:15, just have time to run up the stairs, and the joint would be full.
Yeah.
Absolutely packed.
Yeah.
Only band I've ever been in that got a standing ovation before we even started playing, man. They were that keen. They liked
Thank God you showed up.
They dug us, exactly. So, yeah, we had a few days in Platinum, and, you know, with that, it was half an album, and I managed to source the money to finish it.
Yep.
And then came the Robin Ford connection, which was impetus to do something with it.
Okay. So what was the Robin Ford connection?
Okay, I really want to look back a little bit. So I ended up working as a consultant for Brashes.
Oh, okay.
Because at one point they invested very heavily in recording equipment from the very beginnings of home recording, the Porter Studio, right up to 24-track,
Wow.
you know, 2-inch 24-track. And they needed someone who could set up a demo studio for each of those formats and make demonstration tapes. Tough gig, right?
Well, it's getting, obviously you had a passion for that as well, so
I
that
loved
makes it easy.
Oh, tape recorders fascinated me from...
Yeah.
When I was 10, I got my first tape recorder.
Yeah.
I hassled for it. I was just intrigued. This is like, you know, magic. How is this? You know,
Yeah.
how does this work? Because, you know, you're a photographer taking pictures of music.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? Really got into it after I started doing recordings. And to backtrack right back, my first real breakthrough in studios was when that high school band went in to record its first single at Channel 9 Studios, TCS in Melbourne. John French was the engineer. John had just come back from Abbey Road. He was, you look up Australian albums, iconic Australian records of the 70s and 80s, engineered John French. Mixed by John French, right? And so we recorded, and we're like, never been in a big studio before. It's like, wow, man, what is this, you know? And the session finished, and the other kids were going home with their mum and dad and stuff, and it was just near this railway station. So I said, what happens now? He said, oh, well, I'm going to mix it. I'll probably mix it tonight, and you guys can pick it up Monday. I said, what's mixing? Can I stay and watch? And he went, yeah, okay, just sit on that couch there.
And shut up.
And so
Don't annoy me.
Shut up, yeah. So that was my education. I saw him mix.
And what a great way to get an education from one of the very best.
And the beautiful thing was I said to him, you know, like, because, you know, I was still at school and I saw what was going on. I said, how do you get a job here? You know, and he said, can you make coffee? I said, yeah. He said, can you clean toilets? I said, if I have to. Can you roll joints? I said, yeah, I can do that. Can you get here by 10 o'clock every morning? I said, yeah. He said, well, you know, I won't pay you anything, but you can come in and I'll show you some stuff. Like Frenchie, you know.
Oh, man.
Wow, how lucky.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of that infatuation, big time. So anyway, Brash has given me this gift. We're getting to the Robin Ford story here. We've got a little tangential there. But, yeah, I knew about full frame consoles,
Yep.
and blah, 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 blah. So got this great job and started to meet guys, from the industry. And Brashers had a paper, a weekly,
Yep.
and I wrote for that.
Okay.
I'd write little articles. I had a bit of a journalistic flair. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, I started to get assignments for Rhythms, Australian Musician,
Okay.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And really lovely articles. The opportunity to write a real cool article about the stuff I loved.
There's a bit of coin in that for you.
Really loved it. Yeah. And a bit of,
Yeah.
a little bit of this. One of my favourite ones was Greg Phillips got me to write for Australian Musician, I think it was, or Rhythms. The 30 most influential Australian guitar players.
Wow.
In no particular order. And I had a great time doing that because I
Yeah.
got to talk to all my idols.
Yeah.
It's Jim Kelly and Tommy Emmanuel and Ross Hannaford, Les Stackpool, and I just blew their trumpet big,
Yeah, yeah.
really gushed about them, and it was just great to promote those guys.
Yeah.
And thank you, tip of the hat. Thank you. You guys, paved the way. We ride on the shoulders of giants.
When was that? What year was that in?
That would have been, I reckon, 1990.
Okay.
Yeah, about 1990. Yeah.
So even with 30, it would have been hard to work out who you're going to leave out too, because there's so many good ones.
It was, man.
I guess you would have had Mossy.
Moss was in there.
You would have had
Absolutely. Angus.
Angus. Well, that's an obvious one.
Yeah. Tommy and Phil.
Matt Moffat.
No. That was not in there. No, but I'll tell you who was. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many great.
Oh, Jack Jones, of course. I've known Jack since he was 13. He was a monster at 13, let me tell you. He could play anything.
Yeah. Mark Lizotte.
Mark Lizotte, great player.
Great player.
He was in there.
Yeah.
Great player. Oh, God, Mossy.
Billy
of course.
Thorpe, obviously.
Lobby Lloyd.
Lobby
was
Lloyd,
there.
yeah.
Lobby was in there. Because I became aware of Lobby when he was still in Brisbane.
Oh, okay.
In the Purple Hearts. Mm-hmm. What a band. What a band. They were miles ahead of the Yardbirds and all those cats.
Wow.
Way ahead. Lobby playing psychedelic surf guitar, way ahead of Jeff Beck. Way ahead. Beat him by about 3 years.
Wow.
Seriously. Lobby was in there. Oh, heaps, man. Les Stackpool, obviously.
Yeah.
Ross Hannaford, obviously. Jim Kelly, obviously. Kirk Laronche.
Kirk, yeah. What a great, that slide, his slide playing is
absolutely
divine.
Absolutely. I've played with him heaps, as I'm sure you have. And
I haven't played with Kirk.
Really?
No.
Oh, man. Yeah, you just leave all this, this does not leave the case when it's around,
Yeah.
Karen Tolhurst from the Dingoes.
Wow.
Fabulous guitar player.
Wow, yeah.
Really great guitar player. Very unheralded. He wrote All Fired Up.
Yeah.
But what a beautiful player.
Yeah. Oh, before we get too far down that rabbit hole.
Yes.
Let's
the
get
Robin
back
Ford.
to, yes, let's get back to that.
Will there be editing involved here? Get the razor out, Scott.
I'm not an editing. I try not to do any editing whatsoever. If I have to, I have to. But I'm.
Man, this is going to go for 3 fucking hours.
No, it won't.
Anyway, the Robin Ford thing. I'd been a huge fan of Robin Ford. First time I saw him play was on a TV show. He came on in black and white in Melbourne.
Because you were a fan of Miles Davis.
Yeah, big time. But Robin didn't play with Miles till the 80s.
Ah.
Way after.
Okay.
The first time I became aware of Robin Ford, there was a show on called The Midnight Special from America. And this band called Tom Scott and the LA Express came on. And he was this guy doing everything that I wanted to do, that hybrid of jazz and blues, and playing his arse off, and he looked real young. And I thought, who is that? Who's that guy?
Yeah.
And then I went out and I found, import record shops. I found Tom Scott and the LA Express albums, guitar player, Robin Ford. Okay. Because up till then, I was a John McLaughlin guy.
Ah.
big time. Heavy on John McLaughlin, heavy on...
Because Mahavishnu Orchestra and
my
all that
favourite
stuff.
band,
Yeah.
I saw them live.
Yeah.
And that was like something you don't get over.
Yeah.
You don't get over that, insane. But then I started to, get my head around revisiting the blues, and realising what that was really about. Because you do that. You tend to...
Come back to your roots.
Come back to your roots and really cop the beauty of it. And I saw B.B. King in 1974.
Wow.
And that got my head right back in the blues. Like, that was amazing. B.B. at his prime, he would have been 50.
Wow.
Strong as an ox. And,
Yeah.
man, you hear guys that you think, oh, he plays like B.B. King. And then you hear B.B. King. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a neon light.
Yeah.
Those notes are so big
Yeah.
and powerful. He was just great. And that was when I sort of went, oh, right, there's more to the blues than I thought, Let's go back and see what that's about. So here's Robben Ford, and he's doing that anyway. Blah, blah, blah. I see his name come up on albums that I really liked, the Joni Mitchell album, and I think, this guy's really got it down. And then he did a solo album called... I wasn't aware of his work with Jimmy Witherspoon when he was a teenager at this point. That came a little bit later. But he put out an album called The Inside Story, and it's fantastic. I mean, that was probably 1979.
Okay.
A great record.
So he would have been quite young back then.
Yeah, I was about 22, 23 maybe. Yeah. He would have been young, yeah. So he's only a couple of years older than me. And I really dug what he was doing. I mean, Inside Story, if you've not heard that record.
No, I haven't heard that record.
Wow, man.
I mean, my first when Robben Ford came onto my radar was Talk to Your Daughter.
Right. Which is when a lot of people that's when the buzzer went.
Yeah, it was just like, whoa. And that was probably one of those, to some degree, life-changing albums for me.
You get them?
Yeah, well, I was heavily into rock. I think I was probably a fairly decent rock guitarist.
You're a great rock player.
And I had a mate of mine who, one of those guys that can play almost any style, and he plays it incredibly well. They're very rare. A lot of guys, they can do that one style. If you're into jazz, most jazz players can't play rock. And most rock players can't play jazz. And then there's the country, and then there's funk and R&B. And there's all. This guy was one of those guys that he could cross genres and be great.
Yep.
But his main thing that he was into was jazz. He loved jazz. And he would always be at me going, oh, yeah, you got to have a listen to this guy and get into Barney Kessel and get into Herb Ellis and get into this and you got, and I'd be like, and he was a great friend. And I'd listen to this stuff and I'd be like, man, I just don't get it. And then I heard Robben Ford, and it was like a light bulb went on.
Yeah.
It's like, it was my gateway drug into listening to jazz.
Oh, yeah, and that record, Talk to Your Daughter, is insanely good.
Yeah.
It's insanely good. So I became a real big fan. I was well aware of him by the time that came out, Inside Story is an incredible record. That's all I'll say. It's an incredible record. I've never heard him play like that.
Yeah.
Produced by Steve Cropper.
Oh, okay.
And Robin had basically come off a 3-month meditation course and just went into the studio and played.
Wow.
Man, it's really, really good record.
Yeah.
So
I'll have to go and check that out.
Yeah, it's a killer record. Killer record. It's the Yellow Jackets as his backing band. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so we got the Robben Ford thing. I've been a fan. That's what I'm getting to.
Yes.
For ages. He and Larry Carlton, they were my guys. They were my guys. Big light bulb moment. First time I heard Larry Carlton play. It was like, whoa, what was that?
Yeah, yeah.
Kid Charlemagne solo.
Yeah.
Like everybody's like, what was that? He was an acquired, he wasn't well known. A lot of guitar players maybe had heard of him.
Yep.
They'd had that record Inside Story, or they'd heard of him playing with Jimmy Witherspoon, that live album with Jimmy Witherspoon, which is extraordinary. Robin's 18, playing a Super 400 and just blowing the doors off.
Wow.
The coolest blues guitar playing you're ever going to hear. It's just fantastic. So this would have been about 91, I guess. David Sanborn is touring. All-star band. Guess who's on guitar?
Robin
And I'm
Ford.
going, right, here we go. This guy's like, and I was writing for these places, and I thought, man, I'd love to meet this guy, because that's something I'm really intrigued with guys of that caliber, because I have met a few. Is the man makes the music. They're really interesting people. They're so focused. They're so nice. Because what have they got to prove? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Well, the great thing about a lot of those guys is they're just out there being themselves.
They're totally themselves.
They're not competing with anybody else. They're just, this is me, I'm going to give you me.
Yeah. So getting to know him was quite a thing. I really wanted, I dig this guy. I love this guy's playing. So what's the guy going to be like?
Yeah.
Is he going to be a good, nice cat,
Yeah.
So
Well, that's that funny thing where they say, sometimes it's best not to meet your heroes.
well, I would argue the other way.
Yeah.
Because, I've always found it really positive.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some assholes out there that play their asses off, but I haven't met one yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm thinking, how can I do, So I get in touch with one of the guys at Brash's, and I said,
Yep.
there's this internationally famous guitar player, bullshit, coming out to play with David Sanborn, and I really want to interview him and put him out as a feature article. And then I got into rhythms. I went, I really want to do him out as a feature article. Yeah, do it. So I got my press pass, man.
Yep.
And I got my little, I think it was a DAT recorder back then.
Okay, yeah.
Little pocket DAT recorder,
Yep.
microphone. They gave me a photographer,
Oh, cool.
right? And off we go. And I got in touch with the tour manager, found out who the tour manager was. And he was really friendly. Guy from San Francisco, Del Booth, worked for Bill Graham.
Okay.
Bill Graham Enterprises,
Yep.
right?
That was a
So-
big organisation.
Yeah.
Billy
yeah,
Graham.
Yeah. So he said, yeah, come to sound check. Oh, okay. At the Palais, and I'll introduce you, and we'll tee up a time for the interview. He said, showtime, he's got to be back in the venue by 8:30, and he's got to have a rest, he's got to have dinner, he's got to shower. So I don't know how long we can give you, but we'll work something out. Great, thank you, So we go to sound check, and the band is just like, what? It was Will Kennedy, Aretha Franklin's drummer,
Yep.
Ricky Peterson, Aretha Franklin's Hammond player on keys, his brother Paul Peterson, or what does he call himself, St. Paul now, Minnesota, like the Kings of Minnesota, on bass, Don Elias on percussion, Robin Ford on guitar, David Sanborn on tenor and alto.
Wow.
Fuck, man, that band was so good.
Yeah.
So we're hearing sound check, and I'm going, now I'm getting real nervous. Del comes over and says, look, Robert hasn't got time to talk now. He wants to go and shower. He meditates before a show, so he wants to do that. We'll meet you in the foyer at 6 o'clock. Yeah, cool, man, of the hotel, which was just across the road where they were staying. And now I'm sitting there and I'm having a coffee, and I'm going, oh, fuck, I'm going to end up making such a dick of myself here. Because I'm,
You're a
here
fan.
I am. I'm a fan
You're a
disguised
super
as a
fan.
journalist. But I really want to meet Robin Ford.
Yeah.
And he comes down, right, man, he's like dressed good. He's looking the business, and he had shades on. It's like this, right? He comes down. I meet him like, how are you? And he goes, and he gives me the 1,000-yard stare, right? He's looking right at me, man. He goes, hi. Okay, where would you like me to sit? And what would you like me to talk about? In other words, I have zero bullshit in my life, and you're not going to be part of it. Okay? Unless this is real.
Yeah.
So we sit down, and I go, okay, here's the deal, Robin. I think you're the greatest guitar player. I love your music. I love what you do. I'm a guitar player. I have been all my life. I work part-time and I have a job here where I can actually get an article out to about 20,000 musicians in Melbourne. And that's why I want to interview you. I want people to know about you. And I would like to know a little bit about you. Is that okay? And the wall went down because he got it.
Yeah.
He said, he said to me, I would have done the same thing with Mike Bloomfield.
Yeah, wow.
So we're away.
Yep.
And we just start talking, like you and I are talking now, just rapping.
Yeah.
And he was the coolest guy and smart and,
Focused and...
accurate.
Yeah.
Accurate in speech, accurate in everything, right? And, really impressed me as a guy, impressed me a lot. And he enjoyed the interview and it was good, we had a good little thing. Told me a lot about Miles and I really wanted to know about that. He has a couple of great Miles stories about his first gig. He's got no rehearsal. He got a phone call. I want you in the band. He flew to New York. First gig's in some huge auditorium. No sound check, no idea. He puts his gear on stage, doesn't know what they're going to play. Can't find anyone. And he said it was like Spinal Tap. I'm walking around backstage trying to, and I hear, I knock on the door, and the door opens and it's him. Red trumpet, the shades. He said, with the shades down, says, "Are you Robin?" He said, Robin says, "I'm just shitting bullets." He said, "Yeah." "Is that what you're wearing?" Robin goes, "No, I've got a suit in the dressing room." "Okay, so I'll see you a bit later. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm just going to look at myself for a little while." Shut the door. That was his.
I do remember seeing it in an interview where he'd been playing for ages and he hadn't even had a conversation with Miles.
No.
And he got invited up to Miles's room. And he thought that, and he was worried that he was going to
go home.
Well, he's going to be reprimanded for something or other.
Yeah.
And then he walked in and basically Miles said, "You want a sandwich?"
You want chicken?
Yeah, chicken, that's right.
You want some chicken?
You want some
Robin's the only guy that Miles said, if you ever want to come back to the band, you've got the chair.
Wow.
The only guy. That's interesting, hey?
Yeah.
Is that good? The interview went well and I got to meet his tour manager, ended up being his manager, Del. And I told Del about, he said, "What do you do?" I said, "I play a bit, and this is my sideline." He said, "Oh, yeah, cool." Yeah. So anyway, every time Robin came out, which was quite often over the next few years, because he just started the Blue Line, every time he came out, Del would contact me, like, "Would you like to run an article? What else can we do?" And I go, well, by this stage, I knew the people at Triple R in Melbourne, so, let's do a radio interview. And that was cool. So I'm getting to know Robin by this stage a little bit. He still wasn't really aware that I was a guitar player, per se, They did 2 shows. It was a hectic night.
Yeah.
Early show, late show. Brilliant, man. The Blue Line were, whoa.
Yeah, that was a good band.
Roscoe Beck and Tom Brecklin. Man, what great players. And so I went to both shows and...
They were really well-recorded albums too.
Oh, yeah. On tape. No. So anyway, I'd arranged to do a radio interview for Robin the next day after the double.
Yep.
And I was real seedy. And it had been a late night and I'm sure he was exhausted, but I rang him up and he was to do a clinic that afternoon at about 3:00 at the Melbourne Musicians Union, at the club, Musos Club, which I was going to anyway. So I did the interview with him and we had a good chat and it all went out over air. And I phoned up to the conference, the masterclass rather, and Harvey James, the guitar player from Sherbet and Ariel, was Fender's guy at that time. And I see 2 chairs and 2 Fenders amps, Stratocaster, you know, and I figure, oh, Harvey's playing with Robin. Cool. And Harvey walks up and says, man, there's no way I'm going to play with this guy. Do you want to do it? And I went, no way. And so Robin, I'm not well. I don't even have a pick in my pocket, right? And I'm feeling a little seedy from the night before. So Robin starts, you know, getting himself organised and says, so who's going to play, you know, who's going to do his guitar for me? And I'm there with my bass player. He's standing behind me. And the fucker pushed me. So,
Good on him.
I'm going,
Good on him.
He's going, oh, you in the red shirt? Oh, Jeff, yeah, come on, man. And so I said, I don't even have a guitar, you know. So Harvey's, you know, it's got the Strat up there as Harvey's. I play tens, right?
Yep.
I've played tens all my life, right?
Yep.
That's it. That's the tension. I pick up Harvey's guitar, he's got like fives on it.
Oh.
I don't know, maybe.
So like rubber bands.
They're like eights or something.
Yeah,
It's like, hey, you know. And the pick, I mean, I use one of these, always have, a pick that big, right? Hard.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, I use the Jazz 3s, but that's a bit smaller again.
It's smaller again.
Yeah.
Originally there was a Fender Heavy, and they don't make those, so this is the closest. But tiny pick. Harvey gives me his pick, and it's like a pizza spatula, you know. And it's soft. And there's Robin Ford sitting right there, and I've got to play guitar with him.
Wow.
And I am like, oh, shit. Okay. And I'm literally like, man, my leg is going like this. I'm like the big bad wolf on the Bugs Bunny cartoon, right? Control yourself. And we start just playing. He says, right, you know, let's just play a groove. And then I'll play some stuff, you know? There's like 400 people there. Right?
Yeah.
And so Robin just starts playing. He was gentle with me at first, you know, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, well, I can't play that. So I wised up early in the piece years ago that rather than be that, I was saying, you don't push the drummer, you don't hammer this thing, you don't go hard here, you know, if the drummer's playing 16ths. So I worked out that maybe I should play like a horn section.
Ah.
You know, like those horn sections on R&B records, you know, they're quite syncopated. So Robin's going. I thought, what can I do? I know. I'll just do that. And he looked at me like, oh, yeah. Because that's a chord I stole from him. That's how he plays a ninth.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm putting those suspensions on it, right?
Yeah.
So he's going, okay. And so by the end of that, he's leaning over to me going, yeah, man. And I've got like a lifetime of validation right there.
Yeah.
You know, it's the simplest thing. Just that, you know, acute voicing. He gave me 24 bars to solo. So there's no fucking way I'm going to go into Robin Ford land and do those licks.
Yeah, well,
there's no chance.
No.
So my favourite player, Les Stackpool.
Yeah.
Here's his thing, you know. Something like that without the bum notes, but you know, that kind of Cornell Dupré style, you know. Shit, you know.
Yeah.
He's digging it, right? He's digging it. So that was just an experience I will never forget. Unfortunately, the floods of a few years ago wiped out the audio that I had of it and the photos I had of it. But that was the thing. That was a real turning point for me on many levels.
Just in your own self-confidence?
Totally, totally. You know, as Australians, we don't understand that we are really good at what we do usually, you know. But also that thing of like what always held me back from trying to get above the routine of being a working musician in Australia. You've got to do certain things. Sooner or later, if you want to try, and by this stage I was pushing 40.
Yeah.
And I was intrigued when Aaron West was talking about he had to go to the States when he was 30.
Yeah.
Because when you're in your 40s and your 50s, man,
It's too hard.
it's too hard.
Yeah.
It's too hard. So it gave me the confidence, firstly, to approach Robin's manager, Dal, and say, well, I've got this record, I've got this band, and we're pretty tight, and we want to take it somewhere. And he said, come to San Francisco. Find a way to get here, and I'll help you out. It's like, man, okay, we've got to do this. We've got to do this. He'd shopped the record around a little bit for us. And I got a good reaction from Chick Corea's label, Stretch. We thought, but here's the thing. I was the youngest guy in the band. The other guys were in their 40s.
Yep.
With mortgages.
Yep.
With family.
Yep.
With well-paid gigs. And they've got to become part of your dream.
Yeah.
That ain't going to happen, man. If we were 20,
Yeah.
sure. We managed to go over, the drummer and I went over, because that was basically the end of it. We thought, like, we can't continue like this, At least we've got this record to do, and I can always go out with that band.
In some ways, I guess there's always the possibility that you could go to America and put a band together there.
That was the idea.
Yeah.
That was the idea. I really wanted to keep the drummer. It was Trevor Courtney.
Oh.
Was the drummer. What a great drummer. What a killer drummer. Yeah, we had two drummers in that band, John Watson, Watto, and Trev Courtney. Tough.
Oh, man.
We was not starved for good drummers.
Oh, man. No.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with either of those guys.
No, man, not at all, not at all. So we're in San Francisco. We're trying to get the record flogged. We're trying to tee up gigs. We are using a friend's platinum card that belonged to his parents, I think, to buy. This is pre-internet. The only way we could stay over there was Robin's manager hipped us to this big warehouse that dealt in used vintage guitars.
Wow.
And they were all as traded. They were all slightly imperfect, and they went out to shops all over the States. And it was one of these things that's in the Mission District in San Francisco, which is like, don't go there after 4 o'clock. We go to ring the bell, and this little peephole opens in an iron door. He says, what? Dell sent us. We're the guys from Australia. Come in. And we go in, and it's like an aircraft hangar full of vintage gear. It was fucking huge, man. And so we were buying guitars off them on credit card. And then I'd sit up all night and wait for Jackson's or Fretted Instruments to open. And I'd ring them and go, would you be interested in a 62 SG special? Can you send us $500 deposit? And the guys knew me, so they knew it was all cool. And I said, okay, it's yours when I get back to Australia. Thank you very much. And then they'd wire us the money. And that's how we kept going. Jason Singh from Taxi Ride ended up with that SG, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a beauty.
Yeah.
Very similar to this one, but much older.
That is a very nice one, that one.
I don't really like SG necks.
Okay.
They're real easy to pull out of tune.
Okay.
But this one, I think it was 67 to 69 they did this, and the neck is quite chunky.
Okay.
Like a Paul neck.
Yeah.
Or a 335 neck. And the P90s.
It's just got a great tone about it.
Oh, it's the recording guitar.
It's really got a great tone.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And like it thinks it's an arch top.
And for those people who are interested in this sort of thing, Jeff is plugging directly into a Sir Bella behind him. There is no pedals.
Nope.
There's no reverb on the amp.
There's no shoes.
It's just the guitar directly into the amp.
Yep. And, like, we're getting this.
It actually almost has a 335 vibe about
Very
it.
much like that,
Yeah.
But then it's got this other. like a real tally kind of. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, an overdriven.
On the back pickup,
Oh,
but it's very SG.
Very SG.
Yeah.
Real clacky.
Yeah.
You know. When you crank the amp, the thing really takes off. It's great sounding guitar.
Yeah.
I've always loved SGs. That's what Les Stackpool played, incidentally.
There you go.
He had it was a Les Paul Special with, back then it would have been called a Les Paul Special because it was the SG-shaped Les Paul.
Oh, okay.
Les Paul Special with two P90s. So I guess that's what attracted me.
So you're in the States. And
Failing miserably.
how did that all end up?
I'd ended up with us coming back.
Yeah.
But with establishing contact, and it worked to my advantage later. You know, never time wasted.
Yeah.
Ever. You know, Dell was a valuable contact.
So it worked to your advantage later in what way?
Having the confidence to come back and know that I could put something together in Australia, and I knew how to market it because Dell had taught me a little bit of the smarts about that.
Oh, okay.
You know, with also the confidence that we could do something on an international level, if need be.
Yep.
And that sort of shit's infectious when you take that to other musicians.
Yeah.
You know, and it happened to me when I went to Europe in the 70s and I played over there. When I came back, you come back with something different, and it gives you, I don't know, just a different attitude to the music and in your own personal self. And funnily enough, I started getting better gigs.
Yeah.
As a result, because your self-belief, you're not trying to sabotage. Oh, never, man, I don't deserve that gig.
Yeah.
Fuck, you do.
Yeah.
You know, you just go for it, man. And so that's when I started getting, you know, I came back and I was doing Doug Parkinson's musical director, and then Max Merritt and the Meteors, Andy Cowan Band, Jojo Smith, people that I've really dug.
Yeah.
That had killer bands.
Yeah.
You know, killer bands. And, you know, got to play the shows that I wanted to do, Blues Festival and you know, so on. And, you know, work a little bit overseas with Max and stuff like that. You know, great shit. The stuff you want to do.
Yeah. So after all of that, you finally move up to this end of the country. And why Byron Bay? And
Right. I had a studio in Melbourne. I went in hard, Scott. I went in big.
because it's an expensive proposition,
Oh, this was very expensive.
particularly when you're talking tape machines and analog consoles.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're talking high-end ones.
Yeah. Well, I had a Harrison, which wasn't
Beautiful
cheap.
console.
Beautiful console. I had a Soundcraft machine, which was beautiful machine.
Okay, Soundcraft make tape machines. I didn't know that.
And very high-end consoles back in the 70s.
Yes.
Real high-end.
Yeah.
So I had one of those later on. Yeah, so look, I invested a lot of money in the studio, a lot of money in construction, and everything was cool, you know, servicing the mortgage and blah, 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 and because the work was there.
Yeah.
And then the M-Box gets released. Okay, and everybody wants to be Phil Spector in the bedroom, and here comes the killer. We used to get a lot of work. Oh, sure, we would get album work, a high-end studio. It was a great studio, and we had some overseas clients and some, you know, Australian clients, blah, blah, blah. A great room. It cost me a lot of money to build the room. All was going well. M-Box comes out. A friend of mine who worked in A&R at Sony came around one day, white as a ghost. He said, man, Sony are shutting down their Melbourne A&R. There's no A&R budget. There's this thing called American Idol that's just finished. And what happens is, he explained the concept of how it works.
Yeah.
He said, not only are Sony guaranteed 3 platinum albums and selling records up the jacksie at the end of this thing, he said they made more money off the phone votes on the night of the grand final than they made out of their record catalogue for the year.
Bloody hell.
For the whole year. And he said, so this is going to be the business model for Australia. So there's not going to be any more, we were getting record work, but our bread and butter was pre-production and A&R work. And then suddenly that was all taken away and the bills weren't getting paid. So things got real shitty. I bailed out of Melbourne. It broke our hearts, at the time. Broke our hearts. So we needed somewhere safe to land. I was in a band called Andy Cowan Band, and we were playing Blues Fest.
Yep.
And we had friends who were living in Byron.
Yes.
The great Alan Park and his wife. Alan, keyboard player, worked with everybody in the UK. Jack Bruce, Small Faces, Average White Band, blah, 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 blah. Al Park, #1 keyboard player in the UK.
Yeah.
He lives in Byron Bay, and he's his wife, was an old friend, and so on. Offered us a place to, we'll help you get set up. Get out of Melbourne. This is not doing you any good.
Yep.
So Byron Bay seemed like a place to go. Went up to play the Blues Fest. Left Melbourne, bleak, cold, raining.
Yeah.
Came up to Byron the day before the Blues Fest, surfing in just boardies.
Yeah.
In bath water. And I'm going, this is a good place to be broke. And there was an opportunity to get work and so on. So I went for it. That's how I ended up in Byron. Ended up getting a job out at Southern Cross and at the Con in Lismore, and getting a few sessions. Just Alan knew a lot of people. He very kindly introduced me to Greg Lyon and Rick Fenn and the guys that are up there that are doing this show.
I remember back when I was young, it was a very, very vibrant original scene too.
Wow.
It wasn't just covers.
Absolutely. Well, these people that were coming up, from whether Ross Hannaford lived here, Billy Green, great guitar player, lived in Mullumbimby. Why would you do that?
Well, I remember Steve Gilpin from My Six, he was living in Mullumbimby.
Yes, he was. Murray Burns.
Yeah,
all those, beautiful Murray.
Yeah.
For whom I have thanked for my studio.
Yeah.
That's another story, but we'll get into that another day maybe.
And so now you've got the studio. What's the studio called?
Lucky Boy.
Lucky Boy. And it's a fully analogue studio.
And I am a lucky boy. Yeah. Yeah, it's...
I'll put the contacts below.
Thank you.
For anybody who is interested. It's a fully analogue studio recording to tape.
Yeah, we record to tape. We do transfer to digital. You take home a digital master, obviously, and that's what you use to upload or to press. I have a way of doing that, but I stay in analogue to the last possible part of the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are you doing live? Are you playing in a band at the moment? Are you playing live?
I'm playing more than I have in 30 years.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Well, I do Jojo Smith's band still, with the great Aaron West and Greg Lyon, Dave Sanders, Brendan St. Ledger, and Laura Nobel. It's a beautiful band.
Yeah, great people and great players.
So that's there's that. Every Thursday for the last 12 months, which started off just as a gift to the community, post-flood, Laura Nobel and Greg Lyon said, let's just throw a party one night and we'll put a band together and we'll put a small door charge on it and see how it goes. And that was over a year ago.
Yeah.
So there's a band, it's called the Supper Club Band, Supper Club Soul Band, and it's a beautiful scene. So that's every Thursday night in Lismore at the Bowling Club.
Okay.
And that band is Greg Lyon,
Yep.
Pete Wilkins from Blue King Brown on drums, fantastic drummer. A friend of mine from Melbourne, Christian Silva, Cisco, on percussion.
Oh, wow.
From Chile. He's dynamite. A great percussionist, really.
Oh, cool.
Really makes a band. Greg Lyon on bass. Tony Slavich from Richard Clapton Band and Ariel
Yeah.
on keys. And Greg Lyon on bass, his wife Laura on vocals and flute. And it's a scene, I can tell you.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the old days of the Northern Rivers.
Yeah.
It's like that. There's a small cover charge that keeps the PA. We have a beautiful PA from DMT Audio come in and do the mix, so it sounds great. And the band plays with a lot of integrity. It really plays well. It's like serious band. I play in a band called JB's Blues Breakers, with Grant Geraghty from John Butler Trio on drums,
Oh, nice.
Mike Mills on bass, and also Nick Nemitz. We have a couple of bass players, in other words, 2 or 3. Rod Coe on bass also sometimes. And a young fella called Josh Blau from Melbourne, JB, runs the show, and it plays soul and R&B. It's a fun band and works a lot, we're getting those. And I also do a psychedelic rock band called Late for Woodstock, which has been going forever.
Yeah.
And I love that band. That's fun. So, we do Woodstock era stuff. Great players, Cole Germano out front. I've been in that band 10 years.
Cole's been getting around doing some different things. Oh, he's obviously still doing Bourbon Street, which is great.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, that's a fun band.
That Late for Woodstock's been going for, like you say, that's been going for a few years now.
20 years.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, I've been in the band 10 years. I'm the new guy. But
that'd be fun music to play.
It's for a guitar player, it's heaven.
Yeah.
Everything, and to revisit that stuff that I thought I learned as a teenager.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page's parts.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I had no idea. To sit down and actually nail the solo from Whole Lotta Love. That's an iconic aha moment solo.
Yeah.
It's a great solo. Stuff like that is fun.
Yeah.
It's great fun and great energy. It's a band that plays with good intent. It really gets out and gives it. And they're good players.
Because you would have played, was it last weekend at Coolangatta Hotel?
Yep. Yep. So there's that.
Yeah.
And I get a chance to play loud. Yay! Hey!
Well, that's a very rare occurrence these days.
I get to pull a big amp out.
Yeah.
I use my super reverb for that and
okay.
give it heaps. In the early 70s, I bought a Marshall 410 50-watt combo.
Wow.
For $200.
Yep.
I really loved it, but it wasn't loud enough. That's how loud we used to play back then, man.
Oh, man.
Because we were trying to fill town halls with
There
amps.
was a point in time where there was a point in time where I was playing with 2 100-watt heads and 2 quad boxes and driving them pretty damn hard, and it was loud. But I spent 2 years working with Phil Emanuel too, so...
What?
Yeah.
How?
Because I never thought Phil was the loudest guitar player on the planet, but a lot of people reassure me that he is.
Probably is. He probably is. It's in Captain Spaulding Band, and the band I was in shortly after that for a little while called the Naz. I had 2 Mesa Boogie caliber 50s sitting on top of a quad box.
Oh, wow.
Like...
They're a great sounding amp.
They are, and loud. They're real loud. I love boogies.
Yeah.
I love Voxes too.
Yeah.
I really like Voxes. There's a certain sound about them that I dig. There's a mid-range in them that I really like.
Yeah.
You know the little mini Beetle? The Vox mini Beetle?
No.
Oh.
I've never seen a mini Beetle.
Oh, Google this one.
I love a little Vox AC15.
You
They're
know the
great
big
little
touring one the Beatles used on the chrome stand?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, they do a mini one.
A mini
this
Beetle.
Big.
Oh, so it's like a homage to the Beatles.
Yes, and it's a tiny little thing, and it goes in a suitcase with a bit of rubber around it, and I use that amp at gigs. They're 20 watts.
Okay.
They're just right. Solid state, obviously, but they sound great.
Yeah.
And, that little Vox head, which weighs as much as a box of tissues, right, and it's about the same size, you plug that into a bigger cabinet, and man.
Oh, okay.
It roars.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. No, just Vox circuits sound good.
Yeah.
A lot of their stuff, their products, even their low-end stuff,
Yeah.
those little Pathfinder amps and that, they sound great.
Yeah.
I've cut records with those things.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, it's been actually a wonderful pleasure to finally meet you in the flesh.
Hey!
We've been speaking on the
Likewise.
phone and contact for quite a while, but...
We met when I first moved up here.
Ah, that's right, yes.
I came to your
That's
studio.
right, you did.
And I think I put a bass track down because
Was
I
that
was
in-
attempting to be a bass player back then,
That's right, yes.
out of necessity.
That's true.
See, my
I'd forgotten
battle strategy
I'd forgotten
was
about that.
I was arriving at the home of Jim Kelly, Tommy Emmanuel, Phil Emmanuel,
Yeah.
all guys like yourself. There was a million great guitar players on the East Coast. I knew that.
Yeah.
So no, I'm going to be a bass player.
Oh, man.
What a beautiful thing to be involved with music and do it for a living. You know, it's something that everyone should do it.
Thank you very much, mate.
Thank you. More than welcome, Scott. It's been a blast.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't rattle on too long. How much editing do we need to do to get this back to 3 hours? A 3-hour tape.
No, it'll be fine. It'll all work out really well.
Thanks very much for having me.
No worries. Thank you. And thank you very much for sticking around and watching. And hopefully we'll see you all on the next podcast. Bye.